Number 5 on this list is the backrooms. The backrooms aren't just one room, it's plural and a collection of tons of different rooms, all of which you don't want to go in. Overtime Games says, the backrooms are an alternate dimension, but one that is not like many other alternate dimensions in the universe. While others seem to be pocket dimensions that are linked to our own reality, the backrooms runs deep inside our own reality, meaning there is no physical way to enter it. Rather, a person enters the backrooms when in a state of deep despair or during sleep. The backrooms appear to be a series of randomly generated rooms interconnected with one another. The wallpaper, ceiling, and carpet are all sort of a dull yellow, and there are overhead fluorescent lights, similar to the ones found in many buildings from the 70s or 80s. The entire dimension is therefore brightly lit at all times. These backrooms are often talked about as smelling like old, moist carpet and going on forever. The dull buzz of fluorescent lights is all that's heard, and you're now stuck in this endless, disgusting office space. This is already bad enough, and if you go in here, then you'll likely never get out, but you're also not alone here either. Overtime Games says a solitary creature roams the backrooms. It only appears in certain dreams, and the person never sees it. They simply hear its cries and immediately turn and run in the opposite direction. When consciously entering the backrooms, it is believed to be possible to encounter the monster. However, this is pure speculation, as no one has ever entered the backrooms consciously and then told the tale. It may be possible to kill the backrooms monster. Whether this would free a person from the backrooms remains to be seen. However you want to spin it, these backrooms are literally the worst. Going in means GG, game over, there's no coming back. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that you should never enter. Number 4 on this list is Room 22. An extremely beautiful hotel in Spain has one room in particular that you would not want to stay at. That room is Room 22. CN Traveler says, located in an 18th century Arab fortress overlooking the Andalusian landscape, Parador de Jean has a few spooky stories hiding behind its imposing walls. According to the hotel's website, a guest in room 22 was rudely awakened one night by sounds of a woman crying and someone knocking on the door. A team of paranormal investigators was called in to check the room out in the 1980s, and they concluded that the room was, in fact, haunted by the spirit of a young woman who had died of heartbreak in the fortress several centuries ago. The room has been quiet since the investigation, but that's not the only ghost story around these parts. The hotel is also said to be haunted by the spirit of Terrible Lizard, the nickname of a prisoner who died of hunger while locked up in the fortress. So not only is this room specifically haunted, but the entire freaking hotel isn't the best place to be staying either because of the Terrible Lizard spirit. The paranormal crew that went there back in the 80s recommended that the hotel just shut down completely, but of course, shutting down meant that no money would be coming in. So instead of doing that, they did pretty much the exact opposite. Now they advertise this paranormal entity as an attraction to bring people in. Of course, this is a horrible idea though, because oftentimes the people who end up staying in room 22 end up leaving with some serious mental trauma. I mean, there is a woman who literally died of heartbreak there just doing scary ghost things. I'd imagine that a little bit of time with her probably wouldn't make your own heart feel too good. Sprinkle in a surprise visit from the Terrible Lizard ghost and you end up with quite the ghostly party. Spain is a beautiful country and a place that I've always really wanted to go. When I do go though, I'm not going to be staying in room 22. Number 3 on this list is Bursa's death chambers. It's no secret that back in the day, torture techniques, they were pretty brutal. This was especially the case if you ended up in the Bursa death chamber. Bursa is a region in Turkey, and archaeologists recently discovered some very old death chambers from thousands of years ago. Hurriyet Daily News says archaeological excavations that have been carried out in the northwestern province of Bursa have discovered 2,300-year-old dungeons used for execution and torturing during the Bithynia Kingdom era. Archaeologists discovered that the dungeons, which contain a bloody well, torture chamber, and corridors connected to the tower, used horrific execution methods. There are also walls connected to the tower and dungeon chambers. Hangmen who were deaf and mute cut off the heads of prisoners here in the bloody well. While the head of the body was falling into the well, the body part was given to their relatives or left to the stream. There were also rumors that hangmen were selling dead bodies to families for a price. So yeah, these were some pretty brutal places, and basically you would have not wanted to go in these. If you did, it meant a slow and horrible death if you ever entered these rooms. Nowadays, you probably won't have to get your head chopped off, but you could get haunted by small Turkish ghosts. Many have speculated that the spirits of those killed have never left. Number 2 on this list is Farla Family Chapel. Imagine just finding a super creepy old chapel under your home. That's basically what happened here, guys. Daily Mail says the Farla family were having a celebration on Good Friday when they decided to check out a metal grid in their Telford home in Shropshire. Ever since Pat, 52, and Diane Farla, 43, moved into the detached Victorian building 3 years ago, they'd wondered what lay behind the meter-long rectangle which lay alongside a wall. After pulling it away, they found a hole which was just big enough for Gareth Farla, 20 years old, and his uncle Matthew Lathan, 25, to squeeze through. Blinking in the darkness, they found themselves in a small, eerie cellar which appears to look like a chapel. In the center of the room lay a wooden cross which appeared to have fallen down after rotting away. Richard Westwood Brooks, historical documents expert for nearby Shropshire auctioneers Mullocks, said if the deeds are over 230 years old and the room dates back to the 1700s, there's a chance it could have been used as a Catholic hideaway or for other nonconformist religious groups. There's also a possibility a room like this could have been used as a clandestine Catholic church, as you couldn't be a Catholic during that time, you would be persecuted and executed. So they basically found an old religious murder chamber below their house. This is a super creepy room and one that's probably riddled with spirits. I don't know about you guys, but not only would I never go in that room again, I'd be selling my home and moving pretty much immediately. And number 1 on this list is the control room. Alright, so I'm not just talking about any old control room, I'm talking about the Chernobyl power plant control room. This room arguably got it the worst after the devastating disaster that happened several decades ago in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. SciTales says about 6 months after the explosions, workers exploring the rooms directly underneath the reactor reached an area that caused their instruments to scream. Just around the corner was an area so deadly that no living thing could safely go near it. The liquidators constructed a crude camera on wheels and gently pushed it into the near darkness. What the camera saw was a wrinkled mass of melted nuclear fuel, sand, steel, and concrete. It had disintegrated the reactor housing and seeped through the floor, settling in the space below. The mass remained unfathomably hot and released periodic puffs of steam as if it were taking rasping breaths. Above all, the mass, which came to be known as the elephant's foot, which despite measuring about 1 meter across, weighed an astonishing 2 tons, was unbelievably radioactive. This elephant's foot was in the control room of the plant that exploded, and it's just one big disgusting deadly mess. SciTales goes on to say, few photographers of this terrifying room exist, but amazingly one that does was taken by one of the workers standing just feet from it. The image was taken about 10 years after the meltdown, and the elephant's foot was only emitting 10% of the radiation it once did. Still though, just over 8 minutes of exposure would result in a lethal dose. We do not know what happened to the thinly clad worker interacting with the mass in the photograph, but they would have certainly received a potentially life-changing dose of radiation. So literally guys, we are talking about pretty much certain death if you go into this room even now. Stay away at all costs if you don't want to get radiated to death.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the cellar from the Cabin in the Woods. The hidden room to end all hidden rooms, this one holds a lot of dangerous secrets that have no business in the light of day. In fact, the initial secret room hidden beneath the floorboards of the cabin is only the beginning. It leads to more rooms, cells, and monsters. Fascinating, right? The Cabin in the Woods is a masterwork in trope usage, filling the screen with beasts, killers, and ghosts, paying homage to horror's rich cinematic history. The protagonists are all slotted into archetypal roles, only to break the mold in interesting ways, and the way they act is influenced by the space they inhabit. So the discovery of a hidden room shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, considering the circumstances. After a wild night of being involuntarily drugged without their knowledge, the pals discover a passage into the cellar, and in classic horror movie fashion, descend into the depths to see what's up. Beneath the cabin is a veritable treasure trove of cursed objects, although the unfortunate victims would have no way to know that they carried dark energy. Well, no way plot-wise anyway. Most would be able to tell these items were a no-go just by looking at them. An age-weathered wedding dress, veil and all. A puzzle sphere worthy of an alternate universe Cenobite. An ancient amulet likely to call upon a beast with a terrible curse. A conch shell guaranteed to bring about the oft-referenced merman. And of course the Bruckner girl's diary, filled with incantations that will wake the dead. If I discovered such a room beneath the place I rented, I'd make sure to vacate ASAP. I'm leaving a bad review on Airbnb too. What's worse, your host spying on you and charging extra for cleanup fees, or them leaving you at the mercy of any number of paranormal entities hidden in their musty cellar? It's hard to give a definitive answer to that question. The general array of dangerous items and the implication that there are many more we didn't get to see makes this hidden room one of the scariest out there. You gotta wonder how many people didn't even make it out after selecting their object. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Dream Door from Channel Zero. If you haven't already, do yourself a favor and watch the entirety of this tragically cancelled television program. Channel Zero is the best thing to happen to horror TV in a long time and was cut short unfortunately early. Rest in peace, sweet baby angel. Thankfully, the showrunner, Nick Antosca, has gone on to make a feature flick that will be releasing soon after many pandemic delays, so keep an eye out for Antlers. Getting back to the matter at hand though, let's talk about the Dream Door. Sounds pleasant enough, conjuring images of floating and sleeping. However, the Dream Door unleashes a force into the world that nobody should ever have to deal with. Every season of Channel Zero is based upon a creepypasta story, whether it's the first season's Candle Cove or the use of the No End House in season 2. This means that the Dream Door is also based upon an online tale. Titled I Found a Hidden Door in My Cellar and I Think I've Made a Big Mistake, it chronicles the discovery of a hidden door behind some old wallpaper in someone's cellar. Curiosity, as always, kills the cat, and the man decides to pop the door open, revealing a long staircase down below the house that doesn't make any architectural sense. There's also a man, dapper, in a black suit and brimmed hat, waiting down there, facing another door. He moves unnaturally, as if he's learning to walk in real time, and then he runs full speed backwards towards the poor man investigating his cellar. Freaked out, he slams the door and alerts the authorities. The dark-suited man was never seen again, but there was another room to explore, one plastered with ancient blood and indecipherable symbols. A classic creepypasta. This, of course, was adapted to make for an entire season of television. The idea of a secret door being discovered and a released eldritch being stayed the same, but they were both brought out and given additional consequences. The cellar presence in question became a constantly smiling ventriloquist with a penchant for bloodshed, one dreamed up by one of the protagonists when she was just a little girl. The opening of the secret door unleashed this killer into the world, obsessed with keeping his creators safe, but dredging up horrible secrets in the meantime. This confirms that anyone finding a hidden door somewhere unexpected should just... At number 3, we've got Between the Walls and Housebound. Would you rather live in a haunted house or a house with an unknown squatter in it? On most days of the week, I'd opt for the ghost. Phantoms are one thing, they can only do so much, but a full-grown man living the hermit lifestyle inside of my walls, unbathed, unsocialized, stealing my food and relieving himself? Unacceptable. That's exactly what happened in Housebound, and it laid bare some of my basest fears. For a little while, it appears that the building our protagonist is confined to house arrest inside of is haunted by, a ghost. Odd noises in empty rooms, objects being moved around, unexplained presences spooking folks, the works. The home's history as a halfway house known for gruesome murder adds to this theory. However, it ends up being a long-forgotten squatter that's causing all the ruckus. A man who was once a boy at the halfway house was abused and decided to hide away before he was either killed or brought back to his abuser. He crawled into the walls and survived by sneaking about and stealing supplies. All these years later, he does the same thing. In this little hidey hole, there are a variety of items meant for entertainment and of course the required place to put, well, waste. For a squatter, it's paradise. For a homeowner, it is a horrifying reminder that someone has been living right under your nose for who knows how long. Coming in at number 2, we've got The Basement from The People Under the Stairs. The scariest stories are often the ones based in reality, which makes this one extra disturbing. A Wes Craven classic. Of course, there are going to be some gory and upsetting moments throughout the movie, but the premise itself is absolutely gut-wrenching. Apparently, this movie was based upon a real news story Craven had seen, where 2 burglars broke into a house looking for valuables and came across a secret compartment imprisoning 2 children. Embodying the gentlemen thieves of lore, they decided to suck it up and go to the authorities who freed the children. Imagine that, breaking into someone's house and then finding a crime much more heinous than your own, and then turning yourself in to report that crime. Legendary. Protection of property should also come after the protection of people anyways, right? But I digress. In the movie, a similar scenario plays out, albeit much more dramatically. The burglars in this case are all killed outright, save for the youngest of the bunch. He discovers a secret basement full of deformed cannibalistic children, all held captive by the incestuous duo of mommy and daddy. Yikes. That is a sight and smell that no sane person would come away from unchanged. And finally, at number 1, we've got the basement passage from Martyrs. You know I had to save the most brutal for last. Everything about this secret room is horrific, from the method of discovery to the experiments lying within. Seeking revenge against the family that was responsible for their imprisonment and abuse as children, Anna and Lucy find out where the Belfonds live. Lucy takes matters into her own hands and kills the entire family, afterwards making the realization that she would always be attacked by the demon she dreamed up. Seeing nothing but a dead end, Lucy ends her own life, leaving Anna behind. Anna doesn't know what to do, but soon discovers a secret passage containing a tortured and brutalized woman, confirming her suspicions that the Belfonds had something to do with her troubled past. It doesn't end there though, as it's revealed that this basement torture chamber was developed by a group who attempts to learn more about the afterlife through transcendental insight caused by suffering. I'm sure you can see where this is going. This hidden room below a seemingly average family's home is a place where women are tortured within inches of their life to see if anything can be discovered about the unknowables in the universe. Brutal indeed. Double check those blueprints, folks. Who knows what kind of unconscionable secrets could be hidden below your baseboards?
Starting off this countdown, we have Hotel Room 333. The Langham Hotel is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in London, and Room 333 is why it has this reputation. So the hotel was first built in 1865. There are over 500 rooms and suites, and also a number of ghosts as well. There are at least 5 ghosts that make their presence known on the regular, but several other ghosts haunt the hotel as well. The most active ghost is said to be that of a German prince. It's believed that he threw himself out of a window on the upper story room and he passed away. Well, guests have seen this ghost on a number of occasions. He is known to move through walls and close doors. If you feel a sudden drop in temperature, it's said that that's a sign he is near. Then you also have the ghost of a man with a gaping wound on his face. They don't know what happened to him, but they know that he's terrifying looking. And you have the ghost of a butler that has been seen wandering the corridors in ripped socks, and a ghost of a man in a pale blue suit with a powdered wig on. But let's get to the most haunted room, Room 333. People who have stayed in this room have encountered a number of terrifying ghosts. The first sighting was made by a BBC newscaster. He was staying in the room when he woke up to see a fluorescent ball of light floating above him. This ball slowly transformed into a human apparition. The apparition then hovered in his room. He was dressed in Victorian evening wear, but one of his legs was missing. He came towards the newscaster with his arms open and eyes wide before disappearing into thin air. Maybe the poor dude just wanted a hug, you know? He's coming out like, I don't know. Another ghost that haunts this room is the ghost of a doctor who took the life of his wife on their honeymoon. This guy often appears wearing a cloak and often has blank, staring eyes. And lastly, we have Emperor Napoleon III. Apparently he lived at the Langham Hotel during his last days in exile, and has also made an appearance in Room 333. In our 4th spot today, we have Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden is a well-known individual in American criminal history. If you don't know who she is, well hey, here's a quick little nursery rhyme that'll teach you all about her. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. That's a sick nursery rhyme based on the real murder Lizzie Borden committed. But it turns out she only struck her mom 19 times and her dad 10 times. I mean, it's still bad, but anyways, back in 1892, her parents were found dead. After investigating the scene, Lizzie was the only person who seemed guilty, although her case is pretty controversial. Some say she did it, others say she didn't. Anyways, the Borden murder house is now a bed and breakfast museum, in case you want to stay in a real place where gruesome murders happened. And turns out that Lizzie, as well as others, haunt the grounds. Late at night, apparently she could be heard laughing at the top of the stairs. Others have seen doors open and close on their own. Or they'll just be chilling out, minding their own business, when all of a sudden they get a whiff of Lizzie's perfume. On top of that, others have heard the traumatized maid screaming for help, and others have seen her parents walking the grounds. In our 3rd spot, we have the Banff Springs Hotel. There's one room in this hotel that was so scary and plagued with paranormal activity that they no longer let anyone in that room, and it has since been boarded up. So Banff Springs Hotel is considered a luxury mountain resort located in Canada. Seems kind of odd that it's terribly haunted, but it is. So according to a number of legends, the hotel is haunted by its tragic past. Decades ago, a family was killed killed in room 873. In 1928, a married couple and their daughter checked into the hotel, but they never checked out. During one night, the father ended up taking the lives of his wife and daughter before taking his own life. No one knows why he did such a horrific deed. Soon after, the room was refurbished and booked out to visitors. But weird things started happening in that room. Guests would wake up in the middle of the night to sounds of screaming. When they would flip on the lights, they would see bloody handprints on the mirror inside their room. Obviously, they would freak the hell out and then run to the front desk. But when the staff went to the room to investigate, the prints would be gone. It was happening so frequently that they decided to board up the room. In fact, if you go to the hotel today, there are rooms ending in 73 on each floor except the 8th floor. In the spot that the room should be, you can tell that a room was once there but has since been boarded up. There are lights placed above each doorway, and there is one above where this missing door would have been. Not only that, but the baseboard is cut where the door would have been. And if you knock along the walls, it sounds like it's made of thick plaster. But if you knock on the spot where room 873 should be, it sounds hollow. So it's believed that there is definitely a room 873 at the Banff Springs Hotel, and they boarded it up because it's literally haunted by the family that died in there. It's really freaky. I'm good with keeping that room sealed up forever, okay? In our second spot, we have the Axe Murder House, aka another place that you'll never catch me at, and another place plagued with paranormal activity and dark history. So on June 10th, 1912, husband and wife Josiah and Sarah Moore and their 3 sons and daughter were found bludgeoned to death inside of their home. The killer was never caught. After investigating the bodies and crime scene, it was concluded that the dark deed was done at around 12:45 midnight. They found 2 cigarettes in the attic, suggesting that the killer or killers were waiting in the attic until the family went to bed. They started in the master bedroom with the parents, struck them with an axe, and then moved on. Then they returned back to the master bedroom at the end to hit the 2 with more blows. And now it's said that this house and the rooms in it are extremely haunted. People that have gone on tours of the house have claimed to hear children's voices and screams. Others have seen objects move and fly on their own. But in 2014, something very scary and unexplainable happened. It happened to paranormal investigator Robert Stephen Larson Jr. He was touring the house. While staying at the house, he stabbed himself in the chest. The freakiest part? He got stabbed at 12:45 a.m. the same time the murders of the Moore family occurred. So yeah, maybe don't go exploring the rooms there unless you want something like that to happen to you. And in our number 1 spot today, we have room B340. Room B340 is a part of the Queen Mary, which is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in America. There are a number of ghosts that haunt this hotel, from Jackie, the little girl who haunts the first-class pool, to a man named John Petter who was crushed by a watertight door, to Second Senior Officer William Eric Stark who accidentally drank cleaning fluid instead of gin, and one of the cooks who was baked alive by his own staff during World War II. So yeah, a lot of dark things have happened on this ship turned hotel. Now there is one room on this ship that you never, and I mean never, want to go to, and that is room B340. It's the site of a huge tragedy. So back in the 60s, the ship was used for transatlantic cruises. Well, while on this cruise, a man went crazy and took the lives of 2 women in this room. When his crimes were discovered, he was locked in the room until they could dock the ship and deal with him. The door was locked from the outside and a guard was positioned outside the room so the killer couldn't escape. At one point, the guard heard the man pounding on the door saying that someone was in the room with him and was trying to kill him. Obviously the guard was like, I ain't no idiot, and never opened the door. He thought that this was the guy trying to get the guard to open the door so that he could escape. Here's where it gets weird, okay? Shortly after, the guard heard nothing coming from the room, so he thought, okay, the man finally settled down and went to bed. The next day, the ship arrived in New York and the NYPD boarded the ship to arrest the man. But when he opened the door, they found the man's body parts scattered across the room. His limbs had been ripped off and they were all over the place. There was no way he could have done this to himself. So what happened to him in there? Was there actually someone in that room with him? If so, How did they get in? And who is this person? It's just all so eerie, and that's why you should never board the ship, let alone go to this room. But if you want to, its ship welcomes paranormal investigators or anyone brave enough to spend the night there. A number of guests have reported eerie things happening to them in the middle of the night. In 1966, a woman was staying in the room and woke up to the covers on the bed being pulled off of her. When she opened her eyes, she saw a man standing at the end of her bed. She screamed and ran out of her room, but when she did, the man vanished into thin air. Other guests have complained about the lights in the room flickering on and off, or have heard sounds of someone knocking on the door in the middle of the night. Even the hotel maids have complained about the room, saying sometimes they have entered the room to find the water in the bathroom running, when no one was in the room for days. So with all that being said, would you dare to spend the night there?
Coming in at 5, secret crawl space. Imgur user 2Bite Brownie was subject to an awful discovery when he found a secret crawl space in his own home. One day he was playing around with his brother in their parents' bedroom and fell hard against a built-in bookshelf. To their surprise, it opened, revealing a hidden room with a scary spiral staircase that looked as though it belonged in a movie. The brothers then descended the stairs, which led them to a strange crawl space full of Halloween candy and a fresh-looking banana peel. I quote, "Someone was living in our walls. That is my Halloween candy. Someone came into my room, took from my bed and brought it back in here. 30 seconds after taking a picture, we realized what it meant and got the out of there." Now, the other items that were found included an elephant carving, a skeleton key, and some creepy looking dolls. Using forensic science and observing the lack of supplies, the police determined the squatter was only living there temporarily. I mean, thank God, but that doesn't make the situation that much better. There were no other entrances to the secret room, meaning the person could only gain access to it via the parents' bedroom. That is absolutely horrifying. To make matters worse, police never found the person, so the parents boarded up the room as a precaution. I mean, I would have moved, but you do you. Coming in at 4, secret squatter. A few years back at Ohio State University, a few students were left frightened when they discovered the source of some strange noises coming from a door in their home. At night, cupboards would open and close on their own, and the food was constantly going missing. So, like any sane person, they chalked it up to a ghost and believed the accommodation they were staying in was haunted. However, they were wrong when they discovered their ghostly roommate was actually a man living in a secret room in their basement. When they moved in, they assumed the secret room was a maintenance cupboard, but after forcing the door open, they discovered a small room with a double bed, framed photographs, and even textbooks. After discovering that someone had been living under their roof free of charge, the students quickly changed the locks and left a note on the door, advising the stranger that he wasn't free to stay in their home. I mean, it is a little weird, isn't it? Turns out the squatter's name was Jeremy. Jeremy was using the basement sink to wash his clothes and apparently gained access to the house via his cousin, who was a previous resident, and then just chose not to leave. Thankfully, the students had no hard feelings towards Jeremy. I quote, "I feel bad for him. It's just he wasn't supposed to be living there. It's funny now, but it potentially could have been extremely dangerous given some random guy had a key to our house. Yes, it's 100% weird. I would be less kind if I found out someone was living in my apartment with me. Horrible." Coming in at 3, secret castle. Now, I'm stretching the definition of rooms here and bringing you not just one secret room, but an entire secret castle. Yeah, it's your lucky day. Robert Fiddler dreamt of building a Tudor-style castle with a rampart, cannon, turrets, and an entertainment center for his family, which I assume includes jousting? I don't know. According to Robert, it was his high right as an Englishman to build the secret castle. However, the land was unfortunately zoned for industrial purposes, and Robert couldn't attain the necessary permissions. So, what did he do? He decided to build it anyway and somehow hid the entire construction process behind the 40 feet high haystack surrounding the property. The construction was completed in just 2 years, and he and his family lived there in secret for over 4 years, with no incidents from his neighbors or even the government. However, in time, Robert tried to apply for a certificate of lawfulness, reasoning that since the home had been there for 4 years without any complaints, it would be granted to him because of a statute of limitations loophole. This guy is sneaky. I'm not sure if I like Robert, but I sure do respect him. And for the first time after 4 years, he pulled down the haystacks to unveil his home. Word very quickly got out and the local council came over for scones and tea. Honestly, it doesn't get more British than that. However, that That would have been the dream, right? Scones and tea? That's not what happened though. The council came over, hated everything Robert had done, and in turn the secret castle got demolished. Sucks to be Robert. Don't build a secret castle, you fool. Coming in at 2, Dunnerden. Dunnerden is the Aspen home of Broadband Software co-founder Doug Carlston. Now, from the outside, Dunnerden looks pretty much like an ordinary log cabin. However, inside it has a staggering 1,700 feet of secret passageways, nearly 6 football fields worth. Now, for most gamers, they will know that Doug Carlston was responsible for the successful puzzle adventure game Myst. In the game, players are told that a special book has caused them to travel to Myst Island. Fun times. Now, Doug's home reflected his personality as a gaming giant, with its innocuous filing cabinets concealing doors and dresser drawers that serve as passageways to other rooms. To add to the craziness, the bottom of the home is a labyrinth of eerie catacombs full of treasure. Now, things get a little creepier here though. In Dunnerden, there is something called the Room of Doom, where guests are urged to stand on a rocky ledge behind a waterfall. There are just 2 ways out of the room: swim through a chute or jump through the waterfall, and you hope you land in the swimming pool below. Absolutely terrifying. And finally, coming in at number 1, the Murder Castle. Back in 1889, Herman W. Mudgett built a hotel in Chicago in anticipation for the huge tourist boom that would occur with the upcoming 1893 World's Fair. However, instead of a standard hotel, Mudgett built a fun house, but not in the general sense. This one had trapdoors, hidden stairways, and surprise chutes to the basement. It turned out that Mudgett was the real name of H.H. Holmes, America's first famous serial killer, who used the upper floors of his hotel in order to torture and kill hundreds of people in Chicago, most of whom were women and tourists. Eventually things became unstuck for the killer, and he was in turn forced to confess to his crimes. He was then executed. When police raided the Murder Castle, they discovered secret windowless rooms, false floors, rooms with no escape from the inside, and even soundproof bedrooms and gas chambers. Shortly after Holmes's capture, the Murder Castle was burned down and a post office was built on the site in 1938. Still stands today and is definitely haunted. You should check it out. In at 4, Dunnerden. Dunnerden is the Aspen home of Broadband Software co-founder Doug Carlston. Outside it looks like an ordinary log cabin, however inside it has 1,700 feet of secret passageways, nearly 6 football fields worth. Carlston is responsible for the puzzle adventure game Myst, and his house reflects his personality, with its innocuous filing cabinets that conceal doors and dresser drawers that reveal passageways to other rooms. At the bottom of his house is a labyrinth of creepy catacombs full of treasure. Now, what makes this secret fortress scary is that Dunnerden has something called the Room of Doom, where guests are urged to stand on a rocky ledge behind a waterfall. There are only 2 ways out of the Room of Doom: swim through the chute or jump through the waterfall and hope you land in the pool. In at 3, Crawl Space. Uploaded by 2Byte Brownie, a series of photos documents the time he was screwing around with his brother in their parents' bedroom and fell hard into a built-in bookshelf. It opened, revealing a hidden room with a spiral staircase, which can only mean one thing: torture chamber. The brothers descended the steps, which led down to a strange crawl space full of Halloween candy and even a fresh-looking banana peel. The user stated, I quote, "Someone was living in our walls. That is my Halloween candy. Someone came into my room, took from my bag, and brought it back in here. 30 seconds after taking a picture, we realized what it meant and got the out of there." Those weren't the only things that the boys found down there either. Other items included an elephant carving, a skeleton key, and some creepy dolls. Police determined, following forensic science and observing the lack of supplies, that the squatter was living there temporarily. There were no other entrances to the secret passage, meaning the person could have only gained access through the parents' bedroom. Police never found the person, resulting in the parents boarding up the room as precaution. I would have moved, but that's just me.
Coming in at number 4, we have a terrifying tale from Shropshire, England. The Farla family had lived in their old Victorian home for 3 years and were always curious about a metre-long metal grate that just lay in the floor. Thinking it was just an old air duct, they'd covered it with mats and rugs and they'd forgotten about it over the years. But one night, after a few drinks and a bit of a party, the family mustered up the courage to see where it led. After pulling it away, the family found a hole just big enough for a few of them to squeeze through. Now, things get a little bit weird here. What they found below, well, no one expected. Blinking in the darkness, what they first thought was a stone cellar turned out to be a strange chapel. There was a rotten wooden cross on the ground and hooks hanging from the ceiling. The family had no idea that this weird mausoleum was right underneath their feet the whole time, and it even turned out that a small staircase from the chapel led directly behind a bookcase in the dining room. The family have since reported a strange presence since unearthing the chapel and have taken a series of photographs that appear to show orbs and a spectre floating around. Keep it hidden, guys. And next up at number 3, we have the tale of a brave HVAC worker who delved just a little too deep. In 2017, a video surfaced online of a guy who had been sent out by his company to clean an air conditioning unit. It was kept in a garage, and this meant crawling into the attic space to investigate the existing system. Now, that's where things got a little bit weird. As he walked up the attic ladder, he first noticed that there was a strange red carpet on the floor. A little bit weird considering it's, an attic, but that's just the start. Further on, at the end of the actual attic space, was another door with a men's room sign nailed above, because, that's normal. What he found inside was a wood-paneled room with blood-red floors. There were several strange etchings on the walls, and also a few license plates were hanging from the ceiling. If that's not weird enough, it turns out those license plates, they belong to D.D. Moore, aka the Lottery Killer. D.D. was convicted of murdering Abraham Shakespeare, a Florida resident who incredibly won the lottery in 2012. Wow. As for the HVAC worker, he was fine. They're pretty resilient people, just another day at the office. Now at number 2, we have a story from 2014 where Reddit user Lumberjack found a creepy hidden crawl space while poking around in his attic. Now eventually this story had to be removed from the internet for its sensitive material, but the Reddit user's tale will send a shiver down your spine. As Lumberjack made his way through the crawl space, it led to an ominous looking metal door. It was locked, of course, they always are. After eventually breaking through the lock, he found a room where the walls, floor and ceiling were completely covered in soundproofing and plastic tarp, as well as a strange raised area the size of a single bed and a black sentry safe just lying on the floor. And again, on the floor was a large leather briefcase, and inside was an old wooden box, some silver ingots, various letters and paper money from several different countries across the globe. The weirdest part though were the tapes that Lumberjack had found inside the safe. One of them had the words "no, no, no, no" written on it, and there was a sheet of lined paper with "save yourself" written in black ink. Well, that's enough of that.
Coming in number 5, we've got the Los Feliz Murder Mansion. Also a great name for an instrumental math rock band or maybe a spooky improv group. Feel free to use it as long as you invite me to the first show. The Los Feliz Murder Mansion is exactly what it sounds like. A mansion in Los Feliz where somebody was murdered. It goes further than that, as the circumstances surrounding the murder are quite grisly indeed. In the late 50s, this house belonged to Dr. Harold Perelson, a family man with a successful career. Those last 2 bits were just for show though, as there was plenty of darkness hidden beneath the veneer of respectability. On one fateful night, he decided enough was enough and found his trusty hammer. Using this carpentry tool as an improvised weapon, he ended the life of his wife in brutal fashion. One attack wasn't enough either, as Dr. Perelson went after his daughter as well. Thankfully, he wasn't able to finish her off, but she was still gravely injured. Realizing what he had done, he decided to drink enough acid to burn through his insides and send him on to the afterlife. Chilling, to say the least. What would drive a person to commit such an act? After this all became public knowledge, people avoided the home for a while. The place where something so horrid happened can't be comfortable to sit around in. However, after a while, a family bought up the property and used it largely for storage. That's probably a safer bet than actually living there, eh? In 2016, the place was cleared out and most of the remaining stuff was auctioned off. Then it sold in 2019 and someone new moved in. Maybe time did a nice revision and people forgot what had happened there. Although it doesn't seem as though the ghosts are very violent or surly. No, the hauntings here largely consist of things being moved around without anyone present. And speaking of present, there have also been reports of unexplainable Christmas gifts appearing around the house. Maybe these ghosts feel bad for how things went down and have decided to live a lovely family life once more. Interesting. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Marr residence. The older a building is, the more likely it is to be haunted, yeah? Can we accept that as a fact of life? Good, good. So it should stand to reason that the Marr residence, located in Saskatoon, is probably bursting at the seams with phantoms. This house was actually built way before the city even incorporated and is the longest standing building in the area. Of course it would accumulate some ghosts over the years. The main way folks might have ended up tethered to this home in the afterlife is through its use as a field hospital in 1885. Hospitals often find themselves creating many ghosts, as folks who suffer for extended periods of time or go before they're ready tend to stick around afterwards. The Marr residence also has a long history of different folks deciding to live there for a while, so any number of tenants may be haunting the halls. One ghost in particular causes a whole lot of issues. Appearing as an elderly, angry man, the phantom flies around, tormenting any women who enter the house. Some things never change, eh? No matter what era you pull an angry dude from, he'll always find a way to harass some woman he doesn't know. Classic. So if you're really freaked out, don't worry. The Marr residence actually offers a virtual tour on the website, meaning you can shuffle around this creaky home without having to put yourself in the way of any spectral presences. They've also made an attempt to connect with all the cool youths out there by starting up a TikTok account. I can't vouch for its efficacy, but at least they're trying. Ghost stories in real life just don't have the same pull as online ones anymore. Interestingly enough, it seems to be a popular destination for weddings too, so if you really want, you can book your next event at the Marr residence. There might be more than one lady in white though, and nobody can really get mad at ghosts for upstaging a bride. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Morgan House. Another tale of familial terror. This house is situated in Kalimpong, India. A husband-wife duo moved in, sharing the last name Morgan. Of course, that's where this house got its famous name. At first, all seemed well with this young couple. They kept up appearances, went about their daily chores, and ensured that all looked well. However, they were hiding a dark secret. Mr. Morgan supposedly tortured his wife behind closed doors, beating her and performing terrible acts. She had no way to leave him, so all she could do was endure. As time went on, the torture got worse, and Miss Morgan was desperate for a way out. She stopped seeing friends, ceased leaving the house, and eventually became a total shut-in. And after all that, it was too much. She took her own life, leaving Mr. Morgan to abandon the property. For decades, the house was left in this state, empty, dusty, and home to a ghost. But eventually, the Indian government stepped in and revitalized the structure, making it into a boutique hotel. The ghost story doesn't end there though. Guests at this hotel often hear the clicking of high heels and the sobbing of a woman in distress. Those who know the story of the Morgans understand that this is a sign that Miss Morgan is near, even all these years later. Coming in at number 2, we've got Casa de la Poesia, or the House of Poetry. That doesn't sound too spooky, but poets tend to be pretty morbid, don't you think? Once belonging to Colombian poet Jose Asuncion Silva, this was a place of tragedy. Silva lived a life largely void of pleasure or triumph. Although he did publish some wildly influential and successful poetry, a lot of what happened in his life surrounding his writing was very sad. His only friend, his sister, died too young, leaving him all alone. His best manuscripts were lost in a shipwreck, and his family fell upon hard times, resulting in economic ruin. Needless to say, this lonely poet wasn't a very happy individual. Eventually, after putting out enough work to support himself for a few years, Silva took his own life at the age of 30. After this, people began to hear whispers and shuffling from within the house, likely thanks to the ghost of Silva, a moody poet even in the afterlife. These days, the house is a museum. Guests come here for the poetry and the poltergeistery.